What's up guys, Cameron here from Drums and Drams, and in today's video I'm going to be reviewing Elijah Craig Barrel Proof Batch C923. This is a bottle that has generated a ton of hype over the last month or so since it was released. As you can see, I have consumed quite a bit of my bottle, and I'm at the point where I feel like it's gotten enough air. I need to finally get my thoughts out about this, and it's taken me so long not only because I'm slow right now at getting videos out, we'll talk about that in just a second, but also because I'm going back and forth about this. There are things I love about it, there are things I'm not so thrilled about. I've tasted it on several live streams for my patrons at different times. It's finally time for me to just suck it up, put an opinion out there, even if it's not a clear-cut opinion. I'm gonna taste it today, all of those things in mind from my previous tastings, but I'm gonna really just go with whatever I get today on the nose palate finish. That is gonna be kind of my final word on C923 because I'm gonna run out of this soon and I don't wanna have to chase another bottle down for the secondary markup. But before we get into the review, let's address the elephant in the room very quickly, which is basically the room itself. Yes, I am in a different location right now. I'm in a hotel room in Buffalo, New York, playing with their orchestra this week. I brought my camera along. I did a live stream from this room, and I thought, let's go ahead and shoot some videos. Single camera. I'm gonna try to do as few edits as possible, or maybe zero edits if I can get away with it. So if there are a few extra ums, stutters, mouth sounds, whatever in this video, I do apologize, but I'm behind on content. I wanna get these videos out there, and I want to just be able to taste some whiskey for all of you guys without worrying so much about the editing. So thanks and sorry in advance. Hit that like button, please. And if you do enjoy this video, consider subscribing to the channel. But we're gonna get into this C923 now. This is coming in at 133 proof. It is 13 years, 7 months old. I'm sure at this point you've watched several videos about this, so I'll spare you all of the background information. Let's get straight into this thing on the nose and see what we get. Okay, so the nose for me is really, really closed off. It's hot, it's ethanol forward, there's a ton of white pepper spice. Yes, there are dark, standard Elijah Craig Barrel Proof flavors in the background, but to me, they're not jumping out of the glass. What jumps out of the glass is this bright, peppery, ethanol forward, just alcoholic sensation. Yes, I know it's 133 proof, I know it's Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. I've tasted all of the batches back to 2017, and I think that this is a particularly closed off batch on the nose. Unfortunately, given the age statement, you would expect a lot of really deep, rich things on the nose. I think they're there. I think there is some leather in the background. There's a little bit of like a caramelized orange. Definitely some just straight up boozy caramel, which is what we love and know and love, whatever, from Heaven Hill, from old Heaven Hill bourbon like this. But just the fact that it's so masked by this ethanol, almost menthol, maybe a little bit of vanilla in there too, but these are all bright, very sharp, attacking, like forward notes. So I'm not thrilled by that. To me, the nose is just okay, but let's go to the palate now and see what we get there. Cheers. Wow. So the palate is a completely different story on this whiskey. I mean, sorry in advance if I'm salivating like crazy. That is a humongous, intense, and delicious whiskey on the palate. It might be one of my favorite Elijah Craig Barrel Proof palates of the last several years, maybe even going back into some of those older batches. It certainly is like a modern Elijah Craig Barrel Proof profile, and what I mean by that is that it doesn't have those like dusty notes. It's not some of the, some of those super fruity, dusty, funky notes that you got on 2019 batches and earlier, particularly like C919, C918, A117. These are some great batches, right? This doesn't have that. This is more in the modern day old Heaven Hill bourbon profile realm, which is just straight down the middle caramels, very classic bourbon notes, but a little bit of like a cleaner profile. To me, on the palate for this one, I think first and foremost, it's just a caramel bomb. And I know that is such a simplistic thing to say about a bourbon. It might be like somewhat one-dimensional here with that, but it's like the best dimension for a Kentucky straight bourbon. So no complaints. It is super, super caramel, a little butterscotch. I think I do get some of that like caramelized orange that I mentioned. That's definitely on the palate as well. It's really, really nice. I'm gonna go in for a second sip now. Wow. Yeah, second sip. Now starting to get into a little bit of that classic Heaven Hill peanut note, but it's not, it's not overbearing. It's not over the top, very well integrated into the palate. I seriously love the palate on this whiskey. As we get into the finish now, I'm getting a little bit of this molasses note that I'm most familiar with from products, like Old Forester, not Birthday Bourbon, but President's Choice, King of Kentucky. Some older Old Forester products will have this molasses note for me. I'm getting that on the finish. I'm getting a nice leather note on the finish. It is a little bit dry, I would say, as it is kind of wrapping up. That is not great for me. I think, I like these finishes on these older bourbons to go on for a while, to be long, but I don't like them to get too dry. This one is a little bit of a dry finish for me. And now as it's really settled in, I'm left with kind of almost like a old leather sensation in my mouth. So if I had to kind of put all this together, I will do one more sip, but where it stands now, the nose for me it's just not very good. I don't think this is a good nose for an Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. And for me, the nose of a whiskey counts for a lot. I spend a lot of time nosing whiskey because you can't spend all your time drinking it or you're never gonna be able to wake up in the morning, right? Moving on to the palate though, I'll stand by. I think this is perhaps the best palate on an Elijah Craig Barrel Proof since 2020, and it will even probably compete, albeit in a different way because it's not a similar profile to those older batches. It will compete probably with some of those older batches. And finally on the finish, a little dry for me, maybe a little bitter as well. But I do like some of the notes that I am left with, particularly that leather note. I do like leather qualities in whiskeys. Older Knob Creek has some of this, but we're gonna do one final sip and we're gonna wrap this video up. Yeah, it's good. It's really good. A little creme brulee on that last sip. That's kind of a new note that's coming in. I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but there's a bit of a burnt quality to this one. And I think some of those modern Elijah Craig Barrel Proofs from A121 to present day have had some of this maybe burnt brown sugar, burnt orange, burnt cherry, kind of overly toasted quality to them. This has a bit of that. It's not off-putting necessarily. I think it's balanced well by that big, sweet, boozy caramel note. And that's good because if it wasn't balanced, I think it would add perhaps even a little bit extra bitterness than it already has in the finish, and that would not be a good thing. So all in all, I don't think this is necessarily the most complex whiskey of all time, certainly not the most complex Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, but I think the one-dimensionality of it, it's a good dimension. It's very good. It's down the middle. It's classic. People are gonna love this, as they clearly do. Do I think this is worth all of the hype that people are bestowing upon it? They're paying $150 a bottle on secondary. I don't think it's worth that. I would like to have a backup if I could find one at SRP because I think it's an interesting one to play with. It's good if you're gonna sip this bottle, with friends, or you're in an environment that's really kind of bustling and loud, but you're not gonna sit and nose it. You're just gonna sip it, hang out with your friends. I think this is a whiskey that, as I talk about with some things like this, it would cut through the noise of a large room. It would be big on the palate. It'd be fun to sip and to hang out, but it's not something that I wanna, sit down with and nose all night. It's just not that kind of a whiskey for me. It's not sophisticated. It's more of like brash. Again, I'm gonna say it again, one-dimensional. So there we have it. That's my C923 review. I get to the end and then I stutter. Let me know what you think about this. If you agree, disagree, I would love to hear your thoughts. Drop me a comment in the comment section below. Hit that like button, subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thank you for checking it out. Sorry for the lack of edits. Maybe there's a few in here, I have no idea. We'll find out after the fact if I'm gonna cut some things out. Thank you for checking it out. Cheers, and I'll see you next time here on Drums and Drams.